So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Apple iPhone XS 2 years later. Now, just a few days ago, we covered the iPhone 10, and a few people asked, can you cover the XS? And here we are. The XS actually came out a year after that phone did in 2018. So this one is over 2 years old now, but does it still come in at a price that's kind of worth it? Well, right now, I did a little bit of research, and the iPhone XS seems to be hovering right around 400 to 500 bucks, and that's a little bit high, I would say, compared to like you can get an iPhone 11 for about $599, so not much more. I do think the XS is one of those phones that never really garnered a lot of attention. It's a very forgettable iPhone, I feel like, because the iPhone 10 was the showstopper in 2017. Then most people seen the XS and said, I'm just going to hold on to my iPhone 10. It looks exactly the same. And for that reason, and even the XS Max being the bigger phone that year, as Apple didn't come out with a large phone when the iPhone 10 came out, I just feel like this iPhone XS really just didn't get a lot of attention. It just didn't get a lot of love. Definitely feel a little bit bad for this guy, so I'm going to give it some attention right here. Now, this Apple iPhone XS did come in a few different colors. You could get this in space gray. You can get it in silver as well as gold. Now, I went with the space gray. I'm not a huge fan of the space gray. I think it's a little bit dull looking, but definitely held up very well. So the silver ones can get really a lot of scratches on the side because it's pure stainless steel. And the gold is a very pretty color too, but that one also you can show a little bit more scuff. So I think the space gray actually is the one that holds up the best over time, and this one is no problem here. Although this glass back, definitely without that, texture material of the newer, iPhone 12 Pro, can definitely get cracked in the back here. It can also scratch. So some people might have this phone and be experiencing that. But the body, the build of this device, I never really liked how thick the camera bump was on the 10 series. You could definitely feel it. It's very sharp. But the phone overall just feels like $1 million in the hands. It never really did lose that overall premium feel, even though we're now in 2020 and we do have squared side iPhones. It didn't lose its luster. I still think it feels very premium, although you can now get a premium iPhone that doesn't have to cost you $1,000 in something like an iPhone 12. So I think it held up just fine. And if you have a XS to this day, let us know what you're thinking about its overall design. Are you craving something new, or do you still love the way this phone feels in your hand for the iPhone XS? And confirming the weight, this phone weighs 177 grams, so it's a little bit heavier even than the newer, larger iPhone 12 series here, which makes it feel dense. It feels, like you can feel it. It feels like you can definitely feel it in your pocket. This one, you could feel it as well, but like the new Mini, for example, that phone is extremely light. So this has got some heft to it, which I do like. IP68 as well, so if you do get this thing wet, it's probably not going to get damaged too bad, but I still wouldn't recommend submersing it in water. I mean, you could still get water inside the microphone there. And definitely, I would definitely not recommend that. But still, if this phone does accidentally spill, you get spills on it, or you drop it in the pool or something, you get it real quick, you might be able to save its life. So definitely pretty sturdy in that respect. And moving on to its Retina display here, 2 years later, how does this thing perform? Well, the thing is if you take a look at the newest iPhone, 12 here, definitely has 625 nits of OLED. So just now in 2020, has the iPhone 12 hit the, 625 nits OLED panel. It had a 625 nits LCD with the iPhone XR and the iPhone 11. So they're just now catching up to the XS's display, and they have the same peak brightness. And this one actually has 3D touch, so punching in is a lot faster than over here on the iPhone 12. So definitely missed 3D touch's speed. It was excellent. You could see it right there. It's just way faster, but you'll notice that it does have the same features because we are running iOS 14, dark mode, night shift, true tone, definitely similar accuracy. Apple tends to make their displays more accurate versus overly vibrant. So you're not going to look at this phone and be like, oh my, it's just super colorful. Maybe, but nothing like a Samsung phone is what I'm saying. Definitely very smooth as well, 60 Hertz. Apple didn't go to a 120 Hertz here in 2020, so it's still a very smooth phone as well. I really have no issues with the display. It's held up perfectly over its time in 2 years. And watching a video wasn't a problem either. As you can see, definitely comfortable to hold when doing so. if you do pinch in, you will notice the notch. Depending on the content, if it's darker over here, it will kind of fade around. But since this is a white background, you'll see the notch. So yeah, again, on these smaller iPhones, it is a little more noticeable over here, but it's not a big deal. Honestly, I think if you using iPhone by now, you're kind of used to it. Hopefully it gets reduced with the 13 and going forward, but the video quality is fine on this phone. The bezels aren't that thick, anything like that. And you do have a high resolution PPI, pixels per inch right here, of 458. So when you are reading stuff online, you'll definitely have no issues with the text. It's not going to look jagged, anything like that. It's been fantastic in my usage. So really the display, it's pretty much A1 here. It just doesn't get to that 800 nits like the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro. So this phone is running the latest 14.3. Now I'm not sure if they're going to release another update. Every time I put out a video, it seems like the 14.4, whatever comes out right after. But right now, official software, iOS 14.3. And here's the thing about this. You know, if you take a look at the iPhone XS that we're reviewing right here and you put it next to the iPhone 12, the thing is the iPhone experience just doesn't change. So if you're using an older iPhone, you have the same exact experience. So you can kind of see why people tend to hold on to the iPhones for a long time, although Apple still keeps breaking records every quarter. Definitely, you know, these iPhones, if you hold on to them, you're really not getting a changed experience in terms of what you're doing with the software. It's basically the same here. Now, again, I'm not saying 100%. If we do go to the camera, of course, you have a little bit different camera setup here for the iPhone, 12, because it does have the hardware to support that camera. But I'm going to just tell you right away, using this and using the 12 is like the same experience. It pretty much is. So we don't got to go on about software there. It's very fast, has app library, has the ability to add widgets. So you can see right here, you have the ability to add widgets with iOS 14. So I mean, yeah, that's really the big two features here. There's a lot little things going on in the settings menus, but really it's like using the same phone. And what about the storage? Because if we go to general here and we go to iPhone storage, I did buy the 64 gig. I recently had to delete some files. As you build up the files on the phone, photos and videos, it could run out fast, but this phone did come with a maximum capacity of 512 gigs. So you could really get this thing up there in the iPhone XS series. But what about that performance? Because just like I said with software, you really don't notice a big difference in the software. You don't really notice a big difference in the performance either. When it comes to opening your day-to-day applications, downloading some applications, doing some, iMovie over here, watching some YouTube videos, there is no real speed problems here on this iPhone XS. I mean, it just does the job. So these A13s, these A14s, when it comes to, seeing that and thinking, oh, my phone's getting slower, maybe by comparison in a benchmark, it is a little bit slower, but in the real world every day, I haven't noticed any difference using this in performance versus using this in performance in actual just day-to-day use. Yeah, I'm just going to say it like it is. You don't really notice it. The iPhone XS is still very fast because it has an A12 Bionic. That's a 7 nanometer chip in a phone. You have 4 gigs of RAM. Most people will never be able to even stretch the limits of what this processor is capable of, but what it does is it ensures that everything keeps humming along very smooth day to day. So the XS is a rocket performer. Okay guys, so let's discuss the camera. This one right here in 2020, I think is still a pretty good offering. It doesn't have wide angles, so you're going to notice that. Here's a MagSafe charger. We'll take a photo of this, and you'll see the results are going to come out very sharp. But this iPhone still was being used in some pro applications, even with, having no wide angle. So people weren't really complaining about the iPhone XS's camera. They just wanted to see wide angle because a lot of other competitors were bringing that, and Apple brought it. So over here, they did have Smart HDR. They had 4K 60 on the rear, which was very sharp. You can do slow-mo up to 1080, 240 FPS. So I think this camera's still packing excellent specification. On the front though, you can only go up to a maximum of 1080p 60. So this is not going to be a pro's favorite when it comes to matching the camera on the front and the rear, because there's a big difference between 4K 60 and 1080 60. But this phone overall does have the things you need, and with some newer updates, it brought more pro-like features like the ability to go 16:9 in the aspect ratio, switch back to 4:3. So I would say on the whole, the camera for the XS is very good. It's even great, but it's not as great as the iPhone 11 Pro or the iPhone 12 Pro, of course. But I think for people who just want to take regular photos, do some zooming, and definitely get started with iPhone, you could definitely get some really beautiful results on the iPhone XS. No night mode though, so you'll have to download some, camera apps to go ahead and make it become like a night mode on this phone. A couple other things to cover: battery life. So standby time was always excellent for the iPhone XS here. I still have a battery health of 100% because I didn't use this one as much as my iPhone XS Max. But this device right here, definitely, it got me through a day. Just dropped to 99 while I'm talking about battery. It got me through a day, but the problem with the XS is that it wasn't really stretching more than a day. So if you're looking for that really strong battery life, it definitely had to go to the XS Max. Of these two, of course, it had a larger battery. This one only came rocking a 2658. So Apple cannot make this battery too big in a phone this small. So this is just your everyday, get through the day iPhone battery life on this phone. But you could get fast charging with this phone depending on the size of the brick, and it does support wireless charging. So it was excellent overall experience, and really I don't think it was a major issue. Not a lot of people were having major problems with battery with this phone. 10R was better though. XS Max was better as well. This was kind of left out in terms of the best battery life of those phones. And a couple other things I want to talk about is the sound was very loud on this phone. The loudest speaker was on the bottom, so you'll hear it more. And it's a similar size phone, a little bit bigger. But the stereo sound was just fine. No major complaints there. When it comes to the phone call quality, it was also pretty decent, but it didn't have Qualcomm modems, so sometimes, depending on your area, if you were in areas that were not very urban, you might have less bars than say a Samsung phone, so not a big problem there. I would just say that the iPhone XS overall, 2 years later, is this phone really worth it? I'm not sure. There is a lot of other, options out there in terms of the iPhone Scape. You can get the 10R new for $499 at Apple. You might find this thing $400, $500 on the used market. If you really want OLED, you don't want the 10R, this is probably going to be your best option. But if you want to just pay like $100 more or so, just get the iPhone 11. It has a better camera, has a bigger screen. Yes, it's LCD, but I just think it's a better phone than this one overall, although this one does provide you that premium feel. But you are letting off on that 4K 60 on the front camera, which is really amazing on the iPhone 11, and you're missing out on that, amazing rear upgraded camera from like the iPhone 11 Pro. So definitely, consider the 11 if you can go a little bit more, but the iPhone XS is great for those of you who don't want the 10R but still want a premium feeling iPhone. Let me know your thoughts on the XS. Do you have the XS? Are you planning on picking one up now that you can find these things super discounted? Did you just get one actually? Let us know your experience down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what else you want to see going forward. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Nick here, and peace.